DangerMan here with the new i5s from Dye, and I want to thank Dye for sending these out to me to review. Now, there's been some reviews out there already, at least by the time you see this video, you might be familiar with the goggle, but I'm going to cover this in two ways. I'm going to cover it from the perspective of how to put the camera on, or various cameras on, appropriately without screwing up your mask, and of course, a review on the goggle itself. So again, thank you to Dye. And I would like to make certain you understand this is a woods ball channel. So if you're a speedballer and you're trying to get some deets on this, well, I'm probably going to cover this from a different angle and you might not be pleased. But for everyone else, I'm going to cover this from a perspective of the woods baller and how this fits into our world. The Dye i4 came out in 2007, 2008. That gives them about 7 to 8 years to listen to the paintballers and find out what could be improved. Now, we all know one thing that everyone didn't care for in the i4, except for yours truly here because I have a smaller head. And that was the fact that this mask didn't come down below the jawline. So whereas many players had complaints that it wasn't deep enough and that also hugged their face a little too close, Dye specifically went at those problems. So the 20% that they've added to the mask is in the earpiece where it comes a little deeper and a little deeper in the jawline. The secondary improvement to the main body was the vents themselves. The vents now funnel outwards so that improves the sound going out so people in the field can hear you. And they also claim at Dye that this improves a little bit on the condensation, or lack of, or less condensation. So there's the two main improvements to the main body. Now the next improvement to the i5 is something I think we all can get excited about, and that is a camera mount. Now, you can attach any camera now that uses a standard 1/4-inch UNC thread. That's the thread you see on a tripod that's generally out there on every tripod you see. Now, this little part here is a tripod mount that's attached to this, so it's not going to come with your standard GoPro if that's what you're going with. And in fact, this is the session. Another GoPro will have to get the angle out and up. So point is, you might have to get some attachments, but the fact is it works with that thread. You can put it, I've put an ion on here as well. I'll show that in a picture-in-picture. And the real problem with the camera mount, if anything can be complained about at all, is the fact that you have to remove the lens first. And removing the lens is not as simple as it once was. I'll show you that in a whole separate piece. But the camera does go on simply by just removing the jewel disc, the jewel die on either side. So you could mount actually two cameras on this, one on each side. And through the retention disc, well, you have to get a set. There's a part that comes with it, and I'll show that again in this picture-in-picture. They only send you one, so if you want to mount two cameras, you'd have to order a second one. With this camera mount, you can do first-person video. I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm going to try it out now since this is so easy to put on. The camera attachment itself, I've got a whole separate video for that. So please watch that because I break that down so you don't mess up your lens or the mask itself during the process of putting it on. I think if you learn how to put them on properly the first time, you don't run the risk of screwing it up in subsequent on and off procedures, because the fact is, the parts in here are wearable, and that is what I usually get hung up about in any upgrade or any change to a mask. That is when you create wearable parts. The one wearable part inside this is the retention disc. You can lose that. That's easily lost. So I suggest putting that in some sort of large container so you don't lose it. Other little factors come into play as well. But the camera itself on a whole is a great addition. It is pretty quick to put on and off. You just have to learn how to do it first. So now we're moving on to the lens itself. Now, I call this one of my list of 7 improvements to the mask, but it's strangely not an improvement at all. It's something that they left the same. And that is, this is the i4, this is the i5. When the i4 came out, they developed something called the Horizon lens, and this lens is easily placed on the i5. So in short, the lens itself is unchanged, and you can use your old lenses in the new mask. The next area of improvement is to the earpiece vents themselves. Now there's 4 particular upgrades I found or I could identify. I'm not saying you won't find your own, but this is what I see. Number 1, they added the earpiece vents for improved sound. Again, the size is a little deeper as addressed earlier. Third, and I've talked to Dye about this, the Velcro disc on the inside that attaches the ear to the disc used to come off. They've time tested it, and they claim that the glue or the adhesive that they use now and there is more long-term, for lack of better words. So now that won't come off. Okay, your Velcro may come off, but the disc itself won't. So there's 3. What's the last one? Well, I'm going to do a little picture-in-picture for this one. They've added a little piece of padding here.
Remember earlier I claimed that some players said the mask was too close to their face? I believe that's what that padding is for, and now keeps the mask a little further from their face so they don't feel so claustrophobic inside the housing. This is one I know everyone's probably seen out there in pictures. That's the GSR Pro Strap. Now this strap itself is not quite as innovative as we think because it's used on bike helmets. But it is new to, obviously, to paintballers. What do I see happening here? Well, this kind of leaves some of those in the aftermarket strap market and the wind, because I don't know how you put an aftermarket strap on this easily or showcase it. But outside of that, what's the purpose? It's really nice about twisting on, twisting off. Now I've got gloves on here, and you can see even with gloves on, I can twist this disc. So that's one of the pluses. They made the disc big enough that even if you're wearing gloves, you can get to it. The other point of fact is that it kind of gives you some coverage if you get domed. Now, this is great for the speed baller, but us woods ballers, it doesn't really matter all that much. If you're getting domed in woods ball, then you're doing something wrong. It does cradle the head a little more. So when you put it on, it has a little more of a form-fitting factor. It keeps it in place. I have found, however, though, that when I tighten this up, I got to crank it all the way down, or else I don't feel as though it's, really stable. Not saying it's unstable. I'm just saying I get that comfort of stability when I really crank it down. Wearable parts on the inside. Because it does use that same, click into a new groove type of thing, like you see on bike helmets. So if you've got a bike helmet and you're curious whether or not you want to get one of these, you look at those. If yours aren't wearing, then you know this isn't going to wear. Again, wearable parts is always a concern for me. Parts that are independent of the product that you can lose is also a concern. None of that's going on here. It's all self-contained. What was the one problem that everybody had with a paintball mask that we never really thought could be addressed? And that was the foam inside. We have all been to the point where we've actually thrown out a goggle because we didn't want to go through the chore of buying new foam inserts that had the glue and digging out the old glue. Well, with this, you don't have to do any of that. You simply just pop out the inserts and replace the whole part. And that is a great upgrade because now you can keep your goggle longer without having to worry about, I'm going to just, not go through this anymore. In addition to that, they've actually put a terry lining on the foam. So there's not just any one little improvement. The improvements really drill down deep. Dye has taken a lot of constructive criticism over, let's face it, the i4 comes out in 2007, here we are in 16. A lot of criticism has come through the pipes, and I personally think that's not a bad thing to wait such a long time between product lines. So now you get tons of feedback and really can make sweeping changes as opposed to one or two every year and trying to put players in a position of saying, I want this year's model. No, this is a true upgrade. So we're going to get on to the last improvement. It's not as big as the others, but let's check it out. I saved the least for last, the bag. The old bag was a nice, soft, anti-scratch lens, will not scratch the Lexan. But this has got a lining, and this has got almost like a terry cloth lining in it. So it's not such a big deal, but it's an improvement. So there you got 7 improvements. Now we're going to get on to the few things, if I can knock it at all, that go on with the i5. Just 3 things come to mind that I could knock this for, and they're nothing major. They shouldn't stop you from buying or investing in a new one. And I'm also saying don't throw out your i4s because they're still a quality product. What I am saying is that if you're going to buy this, there are 3 things you should be aware of. And that is the retention disc is a small part, and it comes away from the mask, the goggle, and it could be lost. So that's a concern. The next is the lens itself. You just don't pop a clip, and pull out the lens. This right here is a process. And even getting to changing out the camera requires you to remove the lens. So the process is a little more involved, and it wears the parts. And those parts I don't know how are going to stand up over time. It could be nothing. But it is a process in which you should know that if you are really comfortable with the quick change of a lens and an i4, that's not going to happen with the i5. It's a little more of a process, and again, I'll do a little picture-in-picture and show you that process as I'm rambling on about the fact that that's a concern. Now, the last thing that you should be worried about, if at all, is the fact that these tabs on the foam wear. So if you're taking the foam inserts in and out, in and out, in and out, they may wear to the point where they just don't sit and seat in there properly over time. But if you're only going to change them one time ever, and that is when you get new foam, it'll never be a concern. So there you go, 3 little knocks. Everything else that I could possibly think of that I've combed over this thing, I can't see any reason why not to go out and pick up a new i5.
Thanks again to Dye for allowing me to review this i5. They have sent me other products to review. I'll be reviewing those soon. Now, if you haven't subscribed and you want to get more, please, by all means. But remember, I do other things on my channel besides paintball. So when you see something come up that's not paintball related, don't immediately give it a thumbs down because it doesn't hit your interests, okay? I may just expand your life culturally.
It's too much for any man!
DangerMan is sponsored by 187pb.com, Patchwork, Inception Designs, and Ninja Paintball. And you may now support the channel by donating. Thank you.